Jasper Reed wasn't a man who liked taking chances. At 38, with a family of 4, living in the heart of Birmingham, UK, his life was neatly structured. A good job as a software engineer, 2 school-age kids, and a loving wife, Clara. His routine rarely deviated from the predictable: work, family, and the occasional weekend barbecue with neighbors. That was until a rainy Wednesday evening turned his life upside down. But before we get deeper into the story, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from today? Leave a comment below. Jasper had left the office later than usual that day, caught up in a last-minute client request. The sky had already darkened when he stepped out, rain drizzling in lazy patterns. His Ford Focus sat waiting in the small parking lot, and as he got in, his mind wandered to Clara's text about their youngest, Jaden, needing help with his math homework. He sighed, promising himself he'd make it home quickly. The weather, however, had other plans. About halfway through his journey, as he drove through a quieter stretch of road flanked by woods, he noticed the unmistakable sight of hazard lights blinking in the distance. As he got closer, the silhouette of a woman standing beside a car came into view. She appeared frazzled, pacing beside a small silver Volkswagen Golf with one front tire completely flat. Jasper's natural instinct was to drive past and continue his journey. Helping strangers on dark, rainy nights wasn't his style. But something tugged at him. Maybe it was the fact that she looked genuinely distressed, or maybe it was that small voice in his head, reminding him that Clara would hope someone would stop if she ever found herself in a similar situation. He pulled over, rolling down the window as the rain drummed steadily on the roof. "Need some help?" The woman, clearly startled, blinked in relief. "Yes, please, the tire. It's flat and I don't know how to change it. My phone died and I've been stuck here for over an hour." Jasper grabbed his umbrella and stepped out. Up close, the woman was in her mid-30s, maybe a bit younger, with auburn hair clinging wetly to her cheeks. She looked completely out of her element, drenched and frustrated. "I'm Jasper," he said, offering a quick smile. "Let me take a look." "Michelle?" she replied, wrapping her arms around herself for warmth. Changing the tire wasn't difficult, but the rain made everything slower and messier. As he worked, they made small talk. Michelle explained that she was a freelance photographer in town for a job. She had been on her way to meet a client when the tire gave out. She offered to pay him, but Jasper waved it off. "Just doing what I hope someone would do for my wife or sister," he said. Once the spare was secured, Michelle offered her thanks, but Jasper politely declined any offers of a reward, eager to get home. They parted ways, and he thought that was the end of it. But it wasn't. The next morning, Jasper woke up to the usual chaos of breakfast: Clara rushing to pack lunches, Jaden and Leah bickering over cereal, and the dog barking incessantly at the postman. It wasn't until he was halfway through his coffee that he noticed the black SUV parked just across the street, idling quietly. He frowned. Nothing about the vehicle screamed trouble, but it felt out of place. A sleek, black Mercedes-Benz with tinted windows didn't exactly blend into their working-class neighborhood. "Clara, did you see that?" Jasper asked, gesturing out the window. His wife, more focused on getting the kids out the door, barely glanced. "What?" "That car. It's just sitting there." Clara shrugged, unfazed. "Probably a lost delivery driver. Don't worry about it." Jasper wasn't so sure, but he pushed the thought aside, chalking it up to paranoia. He had a busy day ahead and couldn't afford distractions. Yet, the SUV stayed. By midday, it had moved, but only slightly, shifting to park a little farther down the road. Jasper couldn't shake the feeling it was watching his house. When he returned home that evening, Clara mentioned that the SUV had been there all day. "Is it still there now?" Jasper asked, his stomach nodding. "Yeah, it's weird, right?" she admitted, her usual calm demeanor cracking just slightly. "Maybe you should call the police?" But before they could take any further action, the doorbell rang. Jasper's heart thudded in his chest as he opened the door to find a tall, bald man in a black suit standing on the porch. Behind him, the black SUV sat ominously. The man smiled, but it was a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good evening, Mr. Reed," he said in a smooth, almost too friendly tone. "I'm here on behalf of Miss Michelle Hammond. You remember her?" Jasper's mind raced. Woman with the flat tire? Yeah, I helped her change a tire yesterday. Is something wrong? The man chuckled lightly, shaking his head. No, quite the opposite. Miss Hammond wanted to express her gratitude for your assistance. You did her a great favor, and she never forgets a favor. Jasper furrowed his brow. That's really not necessary. It was just a tire. The man's smile tightened. Miss Hammond is a person of significant influence, and she prefers to show her gratitude in ways that might surprise you. Jasper felt a sudden unease. Who exactly was Michelle? She had seemed so ordinary, so unremarkable. Now, this suited man in the black SUV added a layer of mystery that unsettled him. I'm not sure what you're getting at, Jasper said, trying to keep his voice steady. The man tilted his head slightly, as if considering how much to reveal. Let's just say, Miss Hammond comes from a powerful family. She values loyalty, Mr. Reed, and she wants you to know that your kindness won't be forgotten. If you ever find yourself in need, well, you now have friends in very high places. Jasper's instincts screamed at him to shut the door, but something about the man's presence demanded attention. I'm fine, Jasper said finally. I don't need anything. It was just a flat tire. The man's smile faltered for the briefest moment before he nodded curtly. Very well, Mr. Reed. But should you change your mind? With that, the man handed Jasper a business card. It was blank except for a single embossed phone number. Without another word, the man turned and walked back to the SUV. Jasper watched as it drove off, disappearing down the street. For the next few days, life returned to a semblance of normal. The black SUV didn't return, and Jasper tried to brush off the encounter, though the business card sat untouched in his desk drawer, its presence a nagging reminder of that strange evening. Then, on a quiet Saturday morning, Jasper's life took another unexpected turn. He was out running errands when Clara called, her voice frantic. Jasper, you need to come home, now! What's wrong? There's someone here. They say it's about you. Jasper's stomach dropped. Who is it? I don't know. They won't say, but it's about that woman, Michelle. Jasper raced home, heart pounding. When he arrived, he was greeted by the sight of two more men in black suits standing on his porch. One of them, a woman this time, approached as soon as he pulled into the driveway. Mr. Reed, she said, her voice sharp and businesslike. We need to talk. Jasper glanced nervously at Clara, who stood in the doorway, worry etched across her face. What's going on? Jasper demanded. Why are you here? The woman took a step closer, lowering her voice. It's Michelle. She's gone missing. We believe you may be able to help. Jasper felt the ground shift beneath him. Missing? What do you mean? The woman's expression hardened. Michelle Hammond was last seen leaving a business meeting yesterday. Since then, no one has heard from her. We know you were one of the last people to see her before this situation. Jasper's mind reeled. How had a simple act of kindness spiraled into this? Missing? Was he being implicated somehow? I don't know anything, Jasper protested. I just helped her change a tire, that's it. The woman exchanged a glance with her colleague before turning back to him. We believe you, but we also believe that Miss Hammond's disappearance may not be coincidental. There are powerful people involved, and this situation could become very dangerous for you and your family. Jasper felt a cold chill run down his spine. What are you saying? The woman handed him another card, this one with an official-looking emblem embossed on it. If you hear anything, see anything suspicious, call us immediately. We'll be watching. And just like that, they were gone, leaving Jasper and Clara standing in stunned silence. Days passed, and the tension in Jasper's life only grew. The black SUV returned, sometimes just sitting for hours near their home, a constant reminder that they were being watched. Then, one night, a week after Michelle's disappearance, Jasper received a phone call. The number was blocked, and when he answered, a familiar voice spoke. Jasper. His heart skipped a beat. Michelle? Is that you? Yes, but I don't have much time. They're looking for me. Jasper's mind raced. Who's looking for you? What's going on? There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. the sound of Michelle breathing heavily as if she were on the move. "I made a mistake, Jasper. A big one. And now I'm running." He glanced over at Clara, who was sitting on the couch, her face pale with worry. "Michelle, you need to tell me what's going on. People came to my house, men in black suits. They said you've gone missing and that powerful people are involved. Are you in some kind of trouble with the law?" "No," Michelle said, her voice trembling. "Not the law. Worse, it's my family." "Your family?" "My father is part of a group, an organization that's been around for decades. They operate in the shadows, controlling money, power, people. I tried to break away from them, but you don't just leave, not when you're born into it." Jasper's stomach knotted with anxiety. What does this have to do with me? Why are they watching me? There was a crackle on the line, and Michelle's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because you helped me. You stopped when no one else would. That act of kindness put you on their radar. They want to know if I said anything to you, if I told you anything dangerous." "I don't know anything!" Jasper exclaimed, his voice rising with frustration. "All I did was help you change a tire." "I know," Michelle replied quickly, "but they're paranoid. They think I might have used you as a way out, or that you could have overheard something. They're testing you, watching your every move." Jasper rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "Michelle, you need to come forward. Go to the authorities. This is too dangerous. My family, Clara and the kids, they're at risk." There was another pause on the line, and when Michelle spoke again, her voice was full of regret. "I'm sorry, Jasper. I never meant to drag you into this. I didn't know where else to turn." "You can still fix this," Jasper urged. "We can help you." "I can't," she whispered. "It's too late. They're closing in on me, and I have to disappear for good." Before Jasper could respond, there was a loud bang on Michelle's end of the call, followed by the sound of muffled voices. "Michelle? Michelle, what's happening?" he shouted. "I have to go," she said, her voice barely audible now. "They found me." The line went dead. Jasper stood frozen, the phone still clutched in his hand, as Clara walked over to him. "What did she say?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's in trouble," Jasper replied, his voice hollow. "And we are too." Clara's face tightened with fear. "What are we going to do?" Jasper didn't have an answer. He had no idea how to protect his family from something so far beyond their understanding, let alone their control. All he knew was that this wasn't just some simple missing person case anymore. This was something darker, more sinister, and they were caught in the middle of it. The next few days were a blur of tension and paranoia. Jasper couldn't shake the feeling that every step he took, every move he made, was being watched. The black SUV continued to appear outside his home at random times, its presence a constant, ominous reminder of the invisible threat looming over them. One evening, as Jasper sat in his living room, going over the events in his mind, there was a knock at the door. He and Clara exchanged a nervous glance before he cautiously approached and opened it. To his surprise, it wasn't one of the men in suits, but a woman. She was tall, with sharp features and a no-nonsense demeanor. Her dark hair was tied back in a sleek ponytail, and she wore a black leather jacket over what appeared to be tactical gear. "Mr. Reed," she said in a clipped tone, "we need to talk." Jasper's pulse quickened. "Who are you?" "I work for an independent agency," she replied, flashing a badge that looked more military than law enforcement. "We've been monitoring the organization Michelle Hammond's family is part of. They're dangerous, and we believe they're planning something big. You've gotten caught in the crossfire." Jasper's mind was spinning. "Why should I trust you? I've already had people from her family show up at my house." The woman's expression softened slightly, though her eyes remained serious. "Because if you don't, you and your family might not make it out of this unscathed." She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, scanning the room with practiced precision. "Michelle is in more danger than you realize. Her family's organization is responsible for some of the most covert operations in Europe. Assassinations, political manipulations, money laundering. They're a syndicate that operates under the guise of legitimate business." Jasper sat down heavily on the couch, trying to process everything. "And what does that have to do with me?" "You're collateral," she said bluntly. "They're testing you, making sure you're not involved in any of Michelle's plans to escape. But if they decide you are, well, people who cross this group don't tend to live very long." The woman looked at them both, her face grim. "There's only one option: disappear. You need to leave. Go somewhere they can't find you, at least until we can neutralize the threat." Jasper stood up, shaking his head. "We can't just run. We have kids, jobs, a life here. We can't just throw it all away." The woman's eyes hardened. "If you don't, they'll come for you. And when they do, it won't just be a polite knock at the door. You have to trust me on this." The weight of her words settled heavily over the room. Jasper knew she was right. The men in the black SUV, the mysterious calls, the ominous warnings, it all pointed to one conclusion. They were in too deep, and staying put would only end in tragedy. "I'll give you 24 hours to pack and make arrangements," the woman said, standing up. "After that, we'll relocate you somewhere safe." Jasper nodded numbly, his mind already racing through the logistics of uprooting their entire lives. Clara looked equally stunned, but there was a determination in her eyes. They would do whatever it took to keep their family safe. The next day was a blur of activity. Jasper and Clara packed up their most essential belongings, leaving behind anything that might make them traceable. The woman returned that evening with a small team, who quickly and efficiently helped them load their things into an unmarked van. As they prepared to leave their home, Jasper took one last look at the neighborhood he had lived in for years. The quiet streets, the familiar houses, everything felt like a distant memory now, a part of a life that no longer belonged to them. "Where are we going?" Jasper asked the woman as they climbed into the van. "Somewhere they won't find you," she replied cryptically. As the van pulled away from the curb, Jasper couldn't help but glance out the window one last time. To his surprise, the black SUV was parked at the far end of the street, watching silently as they disappeared into the night. They were taken to a safe house in a remote part of Wales, miles away from civilization. It was a stark, utilitarian building, designed for one purpose: to keep people hidden. The woman introduced herself properly this time. Her name was Rachel, and she explained that they would stay there until her team could dismantle the syndicate. For weeks, Jasper, Clara, and their children lived in isolation, cut off from the outside world. The days blurred together, and the constant fear of being found gnawed at their nerves. Then, one evening, Rachel returned with news. "We've taken down the organization," she said, her voice filled with a sense of triumph. "Michelle's family is in custody, and their operations have been dismantled. You're safe now." Jasper couldn't believe it. After all the fear, the running, the uncertainty, they were finally free. As they prepared to leave the safe house and return to their lives, Rachel pulled Jasper aside. "Michelle wanted me to give you this," she said, handing him a letter. Jasper opened it, his hands trembling. Inside, in Michelle's neat handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for stopping. Your kindness saved my life. I'll never forget it." As Jasper and his family drove back to Birmingham, he reflected on how a simple act of kindness had thrown his life into chaos. He had never expected that helping a stranger change a tire would lead him into the shadowy world of powerful organizations and dangerous secrets. But in the end, it was that same kindness that had saved them all. And somewhere, in the vast unknown, he hoped Michelle had found the freedom she so desperately sought. The black SUV never returned,